Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Raleigh, Blaydes versus Junior Dos Santos, and Shaq. It's going down this Saturday in North Carolina. Blaydes trying to take out the former champion Junior Dos Santos.
Yeah, Blaydes, we know that his only two losses are to the number one contender, Francis Ngannou, and he's trying to prove that he's the best heavyweight that's not named Stipe or Francis. So JDS is a legend, a good name to have on your resume. JDS at one point in time was thought to be on his way to being the greatest heavyweight ever. Now, I'm sure he's looking to redeem himself on Saturday night.
Yeah, man, like you mentioned, the only losses of Blaydes' career have both been to Francis Ngannou and that run that Junior Cigano went on from his UFC debut, that upset knockout over Fabricio Werdum, all the way to his first title defense against Frank Mir. Truly a legendary run in my eyes, and it's always nice to see a guy like Cigano get a big knockout win. And on the flip side, Blaydes, when he imposes his will, he sets takedown records and he destroys guys' faces with elbows.
Yeah, 100%. This guy, his last fight, man, was super dominant. Broke Shamil Abdurahimov's nose. That was a vicious win. And I know we remember what he did to Big Pretty Justin Willis, man. He put it on him. So Curtis has been looking good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great main event. I mean, it's just such a next logical step for a guy like Blaydes. This is a fresh matchup. We haven't seen either guy fight yet against each other. And historically speaking, both styles have presented problems for the other one. Blaydes has been knocked out twice by a heavy striker. And Junior Cigano has lost to wrestlers throughout his career. So I can't wait to see who wins this stylistic matchup.
Yeah, 100%. And co-main event, you got the former champion, Dos Santos. He's looking to make his return. He's been fighting, as tough as competition as it can get, man. This guy's fought a murderer's row, and he's taking on Chiesa, also a former 55er, and Chiesa's 2-0 at 170. He's been looking good.
Man, it's interesting because Kish is a guy that's always often counted out, and he surprised me throughout his entire career. And with Rafael Dos Santos, look, if you would have told me this fight was matched up a couple years ago, I'd bet the house on Rafael Dos Santos, and it still might be that kind of result. But I always find myself surprised by what Chiesa does in there. He's very deceptive, so I can't wait to break that fight down and to see how it actually plays out. We want to give a shout out to all our fans for all your support. You can get our bets at bestfightpicks.com. Make sure you use that promo code 2020 to get 20% off our VIP package, which is my bets and Shaq's bets combined. If you guys are more interested in dealing with us individually, you can get Shaq's plays, use that promo code Shaq for 10% off, or use my promo code Dan for 10% off as well. Now, Shaq, let's break down this whole card start to finish, man, because first up in the featherweight division, we got two UFC debutantes. We got the former M1 champion, Nate Landwehr. He's 13-2, and Herbert Burns is 9-2. Currently, they got Nate the Train Landwehr minus 120. The comeback on Herbert Burns is plus 100. Well, Shaq, this should be a very exciting fight to kick things off, man. And obviously, with a guy like Nate Landwehr, if you just watch this guy's highlight reel, automatically you're going to be a fan of his. And you're going to respect the fact that he could be a very entertaining commodity in the UFC. Guy's got quite the, I don't want to call it a gimmick because, maybe that's really who he is. But, man, very exciting to watch. Fights with a lot of balls, a lot of intensity. And when you're talking about a guy like Herbert Burns, obviously he's been a black belt since 2009, 2010. We're talking about a decade or more as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. It only takes one back take with this guy or one submission attempt really to finish a fight. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. In your opinion, do you think Nate Landwehr can survive the amazing Jiu-Jitsu of Herbert Burns?
Yeah, there's been a lot of hype on both guys coming in. Gilbert's, is it his big brother or his little brother?
I know that Gilbert's been a black belt longer. So
well, he's Gilbert's brother. Gilbert's been doing his thing now. And then you got Nate Landwehr, who's got a lot of hype beating these Russians down in M1. Nate the Train, I think he's a tough kid, a gritty kid. He moves forward in his fights. But you got to think, man, in a lot of his fights, he took a lot of damage. And also, like kind of what we said last week about Askarov, even though Askarov did get the win, 30-27, I think it was. But just because their names are Kazmat, and I still think that Nate Landwehr is an entry-level UFC fighter. I don't think he is ready to fight with these top dogs that some people say that he is. Now, Herbert Burns, fight on Contender Series. I mean, was it that impressive? No, he fought Derek Minner, who's a journeyman level fighter, and he submitted him as he should have. He's lost to Russians in the past before. The guy that actually flying knee Damon Jackson. I can't pronounce his first name, but Herbert Burns lost to that guy in dominant fashion. He lost to Idrizov in dominant fashion, both in PFL. And seems like he went to Titan, fought Luis Gomez, some lesser competition, and he got his first round sub. So I do think Landwehr is more towards that entry level, fighter in the UFC, and I think that Herbert Burns has a significant advantage on the mat. Like you said, one back take, this could be over. An armbar attempt, he might switch it up to a triangle. I mean, there's no guarantees that Nate Landwehr is going to get back up. And not to mention, if you watch Nate the Train's fights, he's been dropped multiple times in a lot of his fights. I mean, a lot of his fights come down to the wire. They're close. He is very exciting. I wouldn't be shocked if he got to Herbert late, but I think Herbert's probably going to take him down and get a submission here, man. I think that Nate's been taken down several times in his fights. I'm just not 100% sure that he's going to be able to survive this. So I'm going to take Herbert Burns by submission.
Yeah, and you talk about the competition that Nate Landwehr's been fighting. I mean, he has been over there. It's just a cool story to see an American go out there to Russia and win a belt in Russia and then become a star over there. Because at first, they're booing you. They don't like any non-Russian over there beating Russians. But eventually, if you can prove yourself that you're a legit fighter, they start to gain that respect for you, and you became a star over there. And he was fighting in those mountains, the same spots that Evloev was in. So you got to give the guy a lot of credit. The thing is, man, I've seen him taken down in multiple fights, dropped like Shaq mentioned, and you got to admire the guy's toughness. He fights through it, but can he fight through it with a jiu-jitsu black belt of the caliber of Herbert Burns? And I'm not just hyping this guy up for no reason. And, he doesn't have some padded record. He didn't fight some soft competition. I mean, look, everyone's fought a couple softballs here and there, but we're talking about a guy in Herbert Burns that went out there and defeated Timofey, who, by the way, Timofey knocked out Eddie Alvarez. And we're talking about a guy in Herbert Burns that went out there and finished Luis Gomez in the first round. If you guys don't know who Luis Gomez is...
If you beat Luis Gomez, you belong in the UFC.
Look, Luis Gomez knocked out Sodiq Youssef. Luis Gomez had a great fight with Dan Ige. I mean, look, going out there and not just beating that guy, but beating him the way he did. One takedown, one back take, and the fight was over shortly after.
Much more Chase Hooper fought him, too.
And you saw what Chase Hooper did. But, man, as far as this fight is concerned... I know the striking of Herbert Burns is often criticized, and I just feel like I don't want to make the same mistake I made with his brother. I know they're different people. I know they're not the same fighter, but I was always criticizing the striking defense of Gilbert when he was first starting in his UFC career, and then he'd go out there and tap these guys out anyway. So it's like, I'm not going to make that same mistake twice, but I see Nate having a bright future in the UFC, but I'm going to go with Herbert Burns via first-round submission. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Brett Johns, he's 15-2, and Tony Gravely is 19-5. Currently, they got Tony Gravely minus 115, and Brett Johns is minus 105. This is a very exciting matchup in the bantamweight division. Obviously, people remember Brett Johns for his 3-round fights against the number 2 bantamweight on planet Earth, Aljamain Sterling, and the number 5 bantamweight on planet Earth, Pedro Munoz. Very exciting fights that didn't go his way. But before that, he was a 15-0 top prospect. Now he's looking to bounce back against a guy like Tony Gravely. And with Gravely, look, this is a guy that's paid his dues to get that UFC call. I mean, he's 19-5. This is going to be his 25th pro fight. And not only that, but this guy is a D1 wrestler. And he often gets takedowns in most of his fights. Now, the issue with that is that, look, there's no issues with him getting takedowns in his fights, but the issue I have with his style is that it doesn't seem like his jiu-jitsu or his striking is anywhere near the level of his wrestling. And what I mean by that is he'll take the guys down, but then he'll often be open to scrambles. And I've seen him submitted more than once. I've seen him submitted more than twice. I've seen him submitted more than thrice. I've seen this guy submitted a good amount of times. And I think if he leaves one little opening here against a guy like Brett Johns, I think the fight will be over shortly after, man. Brett Johns is a very opportunistic guy. You saw that calf slicer against a guy like Joe Soto. That's what he's capable of. And I've seen guys who don't have the grappling credentials of a Brett Johns. And what I mean by that, the guy is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, by the way. These guys like Ray Rodriguez are going out there and taking the back of Tony Gravely. And I think that's a bad sign here against Brett Johns, who's very hungry after those 2 very tough fights, man. Do you think that Tony Gravely will win some UFC fights? I don't think he's going to win his debut. I'm going to go with Brett Johns here via submission.
Yeah, Brett Johns, I'm glad to see him back after those 2 losses. He was a favorite against Aljamain, and things didn't go his way. But then the Pedro fight, I just think it was a case of Brett just not being ready for that level of competition. He's only fighting Joe Soto. No offense to Joe Soto, but Joe Soto's a very hot, streaky type of guy. Joe Soto lost to Tanaka. You remember that? But and then I just think that it was. He's Pedro Munoz is out here finishing, Caraway, finishing Rob Font, got a bunch of finishes.
Having wars with Aljo.
Yeah, having wars with Aljo. So, yeah, Brett Johns has definitely seen a level of the sport. Gravely, this is a tough debut fight. The big factor here is Brett fine from all the damage that he took in those fights? Because there was times where he was turning away. There was times. But, look, man, Pedro's got some vicious teeps. This guy seems like more of a wrestler. I probably don't think he's ready for this level of competition, but, hey, maybe this is a good time to catch Brett. He is off 2 losses. His confidence might be a little down. Who knows? But Contender Series fighters in their debut, they kind of do win most of the time, like we saw with Kimura and Ledet. Not saying this is it, but he is coming off 2 losses, and it probably is that type of fight. But I'm gonna take Brett Johns. I just think he's seen a different level of the sport, and I think it's gonna show in the 3 rounds.
Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Sara McMann, who's 11-5, and Lina Lansberg, who's 10-4. Currently, they got Sara McMann minus 155, and the comeback on Lina Lansberg is plus 135. Well, Shaq, I think we can both agree Sara McMann's the more well-rounded fighter, the better athlete, the this, the that. But is she going to have a 10-8 first round and then pull the most epic stunt you've ever seen here in the second?
We called her last 2 fights to a T. We said that she would definitely find a way to quit at some point. Look, Sara is definitely, like you said, the better athlete, stronger, faster, more powerful. But now, she's had this second kid. Lina Lansberg, look, she been shocking me her last 2 fights. Big underdog against Chizan and Tanya Evinger, and hey man, she can definitely split girls open with those elbows and manipulate them in the clinch and win rounds and tee off on them with the elbows. And man, let me ask you this: if Sara McMann gets cut open, what do you think's gonna happen?
We know it's gonna happen.
Look, it's just a matter of Lina can just stop the takedowns. Look, she's been taken down several times in her fights against Kunitskaya, even Evinger. But, man, she's been dealing with it a little better these last 2 fights. I know you remember the Aspen Ladd fight as well. So she's definitely had her struggles in that department. McMann is probably definitely going to take her down. It's just a matter of her staying in it, getting this into the late rounds. Because we know what happens when McMann comes back out for that second round after she's had a dominant first round. She just seems to fold. And
after she dominates you and then tells her coach she can't feel her face.
She tells her coaches she can't feel her face. She's taken multiple knees. Between you and me, I know it was Ronda Rousey, but that was a stunt. People are like, oh my God, Ronda's knees are so powerful. Like, nah, Sara McMann just quit, bro. So... Sara McMann is a grade A quitter. There's no doubt about it. There's definitely a chance. But obviously she's the more skilled fighter. So knowing from the betting perspective, you have to know that if you're betting Lansberg, I don't want to say it's a dart, but it's like Sara McMann is way stronger than her. She took down Kellen Vieira. She took down Marion Renault easily. It's just that when she got hit on the face, she went down. So. I'm saying Sara McMann probably does the same thing again. She probably 10-8 Lina in the first round, mounts her. The fight might almost get stopped. But then second round, she's probably going to be a little tired, be completely fatigued. And then Lina's going to completely, change the course of the fight with an elbow, probably split her open. And Lina will win the next 2 rounds for a decision win. So I'm going to take Lina Lansberg for an upset and then get on a 3-fight win streak. How old is she? 38 years old. It seems like her last 2 fights, man, that she just seems a little bit more into it. Maybe she was a little upset from the Kunitskaya fight. At least she's dealing with the takedowns a lot better. I've been noticing improvements. Her dude Corsani, my boy Corsani he was a decent fighter back in his day. He had a good fight with Dustin back in the day. But I'm gonna take Lina Lansberg for the upset, man. I think she's tougher, and I think McMahon will find a way to quit again.
Man, yeah, I think you hit it on the head. It's McMahon's the better fighter everywhere. physically, just not in the mental department. And what stunt is she gonna pull here in the second round? Like, what epic stunt is she about to come out here and pull? So, I'm gonna say, cut stoppage in the second round due to elbows. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Lina Lansberg here. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Montel Jackson, he's 8-1, and Felipe Colares is 9-1. Currently, they got Montel Jackson minus 650, and the comeback on Felipe Colares is plus 475. So Montel opened minus 610, so not too much action has been coming in. He's stayed relatively around the same price, and I mean, look, this is a kid that you and I have been hyping up since before he was in the UFC. Now other people are starting to notice the talent he brings to the table. But I gotta tell you what, Felipe Colares went out there and busted a lot of parlays against Domingo Pilarte in his bantamweight debut. He was a completely different fighter than when he fought Geraldo de Freitas at 145, just physically and
he had to focus on cardio.
The performance that he put on. So, do you think he's at all live for a guy that has been compared to John Jones, has been compared to Aljamain Sterling, we got to mention, he's got bigger hands than Francis Ngannou. Allegedly. We haven't seen for ourselves if that's true or not.
Allegedly, his gloves are bigger than Ngannou's. He did grab Ricky Simon's hand that one time.
I do want to say this, normally, I mean, look, he's going to have the reach advantage in every fight he's in, but normally it's a 7-inch reach advantage. Here, it's only a 3-inch reach advantage. This kid Felipe is kind of on the bigger side for bantamweights.
Yeah, I mean,
you give Felipe a shot?
I got a lot of respect for Colares. He trains at Team Nogueira with Davi Ramos and those guys over there. That's a really solid camp. They got Ari Farias, Eric Silva's little bro, Gabriel. I mean, it's a solid little team they got over there. So, Felipe Colares definitely busted a lot of parlays against Pilarte. Kind of similar approach, striking-wise, southpaws, long. So I'm sure Felipe thinks he's about to come in here and pull off an upset. But I just think that Montel, with all this time off, I think he's had 8 months off. I mean, God only knows how much better he's gotten since then. Let's not forget this guy came into the UFC after only being a pro for like a year, So, like, this guy literally just turned pro and just hopped straight into the game. Kind of similar to John Jones. That's why we're getting the comparisons. Jones, very little training, but just serious genetics and a serious athlete. So, I think Montel Jackson, no matter, I think he just gets the win here more than likely if he has to play it safe and, if it's one of those type of fights because, sometimes when it's lined like this, he might try to play it safe and not risk too much. But I think that Colares, although he beat Pilarte, he still gassed out a little bit in that last round, got his back taken. And if you do something like that against a guy like Montel, he's probably going to get finished. So I got Montel by third round TKO. I think the Colares will not have success, but Montel will respect him early. He has a hard body kick. The dude comes to bang. He's a tough Brazilian, black belt. But in the late rounds, Montel will get to him and get a finish.
And I got to make a quick correction. I said he only had a 3-inch reach advantage. He actually does have a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight, but I do stand by what I said, that Felipe is kind of a bigger bantamweight. He's 5'8", but look, in this matchup, it's one of those things where I truly do believe Montel Jackson's the guy that we're hyping him up to be. And, sometimes you're wrong on these guys, but I don't think he's one of the ones that we're wrong on, man. I mean, the comparisons to John Jones, he obviously, physically speaking, how he looks, he's long and lanky, this and that, has the reach advantage in all his fights, but also the fighting style, man. He's very disciplined and technical out there, keeps his hands up high, doesn't take a lot of damage at all, and he can do things that other guys can't do. Obviously, like you mentioned, in that Ricky Simone fight, when he's in the worst possible position that you can be in an MMA fight, which is fully back mounted, face down, ass up, the fights get ended in that spot, Shaq, and this guy's arms are so goddamn long that he was able to hold Ricky Simon's arms. He couldn't get off on any punches. It was unlike anything I've ever seen. It's and real quick, I forgot to mention in that Sara McMann fight breakdown. I apologize to cut the Montel one real quick, but do you remember when Sara McMann fully mounted Ketlin Vieira and she missed with all her ground and pound shots?
I mean, Sara's a grade A stunt puller, bro.
But back to Montel Jackson. Look, I'm just excited to see what kind of improvements he's made since April when we saw him fight in Atlanta. Like, from the Kelleher fight to that fight, I mean, the guy just looks better every single fight. You're going to see him drop guys with hands, with elbows, with kicks, with knees. And then on the mat, you're going to see him choke people out with his long limbs. I just see a very dominant future for him. And although I respect Felipe Colares, like you said, hard body kicks, black belt in jiu-jitsu, the guy comes to fight every single time. I just think that Montel Jackson is too much for him. So I will go with Montel Jackson, the big favorite as well. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Justine Kish, who's 6-2, and Lucie Pudilova, who's 8-5. Currently, they got Lucie Pudilova -165, and the comeback on Justine Kish is +145. Well, Shaq, Lucie Pudilova, after that epic fight Lucie had with Irene Aldana, she hasn't quite been able to string any wins together, and the last two were very underwhelming performances on her part. But in your opinion, is she able to come out here and get a win over Justine Kish, who does have wins over top 15 opponents in Nina Ansaroff and Randa Marcos, but is coming off a big layoff, surgeries, and 2 losses as well?
No, to mention the shitting in the cage. But it's gonna be a good fight. Pudilova is also one of these girls that I feel like kind of got rushed up a little bit. She is how old? So I feel like Lucie Pudilova is one of these fighters that kind of got rushed up a little bit. Irene Aldana is currently top 5 in the world. She lost that fight by split decision. It was a great fight of the night. She showed her heart in that fight. But she was only like 23 at the time of that fight, and then she fought. After that fight, she took a fight with Liz Carmouche coming off that fight. And although, Liz Carmouche is not in the company anymore, and, she pulled that stunt against Valentina. Not necessarily a stunt, but she just didn't fight in that fight. I mean, she's fought for a title 2 times. She's beaten Chukagian. I mean, Liz Carmouche is a legit fighter in that division. So I think that... And then her fight with Shevchenko definitely that was a bad grappling decision on that choke. But I still think that those girls are a lot better than Justine Kish. I think Justine Kish, when she initially came into the UFC, definitely had a lot of steam behind her. She was able to get those wins over Androv at the time. But at the time, Androv was still in those developing stages. Androv was losing to Juliana Lima back then. Kind of really wasn't fully in it. So although it's a good win on her resume, I just don't see. I just think that it was a circumstantial win. And I think that Kish is a very tough girl, but I just think she's overly aggressive. I think she makes bad mistakes on the mat. I mean, Lucie did as well, but I think that Kish, man, the Felice Herrick fight, I mean, she came out right away and got her back taken, fully mounted. I mean, there was 30-25 scorecard. So I think that Justine Kish is a tough girl. Obviously, -165 on a girl that's lost 3 fights in a row, but I just think it's a different level of competition. And not to mention the Jeon Kim fight with Kish. People are under the assumption that it was a robbery. I mean, I don't see how it was a robbery. It was a ugly fight. I mean, it was close. The judges scored it one way, and it was in her hometown, so it was in North Carolina. So I'm going to go with Lucie Pudilova by 30-27 decision. I just think she's going to be a lot cleaner. I think Kish is going to be overly aggressive. And I think, off the surgery, I think that's more in Lucie's favor, and I think Lucie will get the win.
Man, it's a very exciting fight because obviously Justine Kish, like I already mentioned, she already has that experience of going out there beating 2 top 15 opponents in Randa Marcos and Nina Ansaroff. And with Lucie Pudilova, she comes to fight. She's very exciting. Both these ladies are going to go forward and they're going to throw big shots at each other. So it could be a very exciting 3-round fight. But the thing here is, man, Lucie Pudilova, I feel like people are giving her a little bit too much credit. And I'm not trying to discredit her at all because she is very, very exciting. And I enjoy watching her fight. I mean, you remember, like I said, that 3-round war with Irene Aldana, the massive elbow she landed against Shevchenko, that caused that big cut. So I enjoy watching her fight, but man, she has these lapses in all of her fights that cost her big, and I think we're looking at a very motivated Justine Kish. I mean, this is do or die right here. She's been spending, she moved to the Performance Institute, has been doing her thing there. So we're going to see what happens here. But if Justine Kish gets back to what I originally liked in her UFC career early on, which is that forward pressure, that intensity, she used to break girls by outwilling them. And if she can get back to that, I think she's going to come out here and beat Lucie Pudilova via decision. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Arnold Allen. He's 15-1, and Nick Lentz is 30-10. Currently, they got Arnold Allen minus 260, and the comeback on Nick Lentz is plus 220. Well, Shaq, the carny Nick Lentz, always a tough out, but this kid, Arnold Allen's been impressing a lot of people. Very young, hot prospect at 145. You think he passes the Nick Lentz test?
I mean, he was supposed to fight Josh Emmett. I'm sure he's feeling a little bit more comfortable now that he's got Lentz. No offense to Lentz. Lentz is I don't want to say a pioneer of the sport, but I mean he's a guy that he's been in the UFC for at least how long? 10 years? I don't want to say he's a pioneer of the sport, but I mean he's been in the UFC for 11 years now. I mean he's held his job. He's got a very good record. I mean, Nick Lentz is a dog, man, a serious vet. We know what we're getting with Lentz. He's dropping back to 45s. He's probably trying to recreate some magic. This is probably the last run of his career. Arnold Allen is definitely the better fighter in my opinion. It's just, you can't fall into the vet tricks. Guys like Lentz were able to sneak up on Scott Holtzman. You remember when everyone thought Scott Holtzman was about to knock Nick Lentz out, and Nick Lentz had to sneak up on everybody there and show you that not tonight. So, by the way, Scott Holtzman's fighting Jim Miller.
That's gonna be it's gonna be a little banger.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a knock.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good fight. But I think that Arnold Allen, as long as he continues to do what he's doing in his recent fights, which is staying disciplined, turning it up in the late rounds, how he does in the last 30 seconds, he's got a very bright future ahead of him. It could always be first L time. Nick Lentz has a very good guillotine, but I think that Arnold Allen is headed to a very good future here. I think he should be in these rankings here soon. And Nick Lentz is the next step. I actually like this a lot better than the Emmett fight. The Emmett fight, that was gonna be Josh Emmett's one of the hardest hitting guys at 145. Nick Lentz's that factor is probably gonna not be an issue here. And we've seen Nick Lentz struggle with southpaws in the past. When he fought David Taymor was able to stay at distance and pick him apart rather easily for a 30-27 victory. So I think Arnold Allen can do something very similar, and Arnold's definitely struggled with the wrestling in the past, but I feel like it's gotten better fight to fight. I mean, when everyone thought Jordan Rinaldi was going to take him down, and he shrugged those off very easily. I just think that Mads Burnell has some underrated takedown technique, and Mads Burnell's been still winning fights, so I wouldn't put that much stock into it. I think that he's going to be significantly sharper than Lentz, faster than him, and I feel like he's going to make Nick Lentz look a step behind. I think Nick Lentz will probably go all 3 rounds, but I just see Arnold Allen winning all 3. Nick Lentz is coming off a vicious KO loss. You never know what trajectory his career is going to head, being in the UFC 11 years. I mean, this is where the wheels fall off for some guys, man. He's had a great run, man. So I think Arnold Allen's going to come in here and get the win and move on to the top 15.
Yeah, I think the hesitation some people have with playing Allen here is the fact that they might have bet Scott Holtzman big against Nick Lentz, and Nick Lentz ruined those plans barely. It was a very close fight, but I think what you guys got to understand is Arnold Allen's like a decade younger than Scott Holtzman, and no disrespect to Scotty, I'm a fan. I'm just saying that Arnold Allen brings something different to the table. He's got top 15 potential. I mean, he's already in the top 15, right? If I'm not mistaken. Is he not? Oh, he's not? Wow. Arnold Allen's not a top 15 fighter. But I'm not gonna talk shit about any of these guys. But yeah, so
he hasn't had that win yet.
Anyways, so with Arnold Allen, I've always thought the kid was talented, but man, his last 2 fights, I'm really starting to see it. Like, I'm starting to see that top 15 potential, because that Jordan Rinaldi fight, man, that was a brilliant performance. I mean, the way he controlled that fight, and he basically did whatever he wanted to do. And when it was time to turn up, it was time to turn up. And he outclassed Jordan Rinaldi in a way where it was time to give him a step up against an aging legend. And he took full advantage when he fought Gil Melendez, schooled him bell to bell. Arnie's a well-rounded guy, man. I mean, people criticize his grappling, but I saw him in that fight against Makwan Amirkhani getting back up against almost all of those takedown attempts. I mean, there were 1 or 2 times when the ref stood him up. If the ref wouldn't have stood him up, people are saying they were quick stand-ups. If the ref wouldn't have stood him up, I think he would have found a way back up. I mean,
remember when he tapped Mads out, though?
Yeah, you saw that choke he pulled off against Mads Burnell. This guy. If you think he's just a boxer or this or that, I mean, this guy is very well rounded and he can finish fights anywhere. So, And he can also go out there and dominate for 3 rounds. But with Nick Lentz, obviously you just got to be wary of the vet tricks, man. The kid's been adding a nice left high kick to his game. He can knock guys out. He can grind out decisions. I mean, he's a guy that can be in the most exciting fight you've ever seen, like his fight versus Evan Dunham and his fucking trilogy against Charles Oliveira.
Ultimate was a good fight.
Or a guy that can be in the most boring fight you've ever seen, like his fight against Andre Winter, where Joe Silva almost threatened to cut him after that fight. So Nick Lentz can, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I just mean it more like, hey, he can change the game plan up, and if he needs to clinch you up against the fence for 15 minutes, he can do that. If he needs to strike, his guillotine.
You know, Nick Lentz used to take fights at 185.
The guy's a fucking badass. I'm actually curious about him dropping down to 45 because I know his body was kind of hurting, but this time he's doing it with different people. He's doing it with the Performance Institute, so we'll see if they get him down nicely. But regardless, I think Arnold Allen, you know, he's got that youthful energy. He's got that young spunk about him. The kid's a stud, man. I'm very excited for his future. I'm not going to pick against him until he fights guys like Sodiq Yusuff or something like that. So I got him against Nick Lentz. I'm going to go with Arnie Allen here. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Bevon Lewis, he's 6-2, and Dequan Townsend is 21-9. Currently, they got Bevon Lewis minus 440, and the comeback on Dequan Townsend is plus 350. Well, Shaq, we know these guys very well. I mean, obviously, unsuccessful cashing Bevon Lewis in his first 2 fights. But with Dequan Townsend, we were able to go out there with Dalcha and cash against him. So it's one of those things where can Bevon Lewis get back to being considered that prospect that people were saying could be this, he's John Jones' protege, this and that. And, he had the great Contender Series fights, actually, but the second one was way more impressive. Looking good against Uriah Hall until that knockout. And then the next fight was completely gun-shy. So can he recover his confidence, come out here and beat a guy like Dequan Townsend?
And I mean, I feel like another thing, like they thought he was John Jones, and then they matched him up with Hall and Darren Stewart. Like damn, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like even John Jones got to fight Andre Guzman and Stephan Bonner his first 2 fights.
I think they overrushed Bevon to a point. I mean, he had the physique, the look. He was at that camp. And it didn't work out. Darren Stewart's been doing his thing. Upset Duran win. He's got a fight with Marvin Vittori. So, I think Dequan Townsend is absolutely nowhere near that level. Dequan Townsend, he's a vet. Not to mention, I heard he tested positive for some fentanyl, if I'm not mistaken.
Some fentanyl, cocaine metabolites.
Some cocaine metabolites. Hey, to each his own, but I think that, I think that Dequan Townsend his takedown defense is terrible. His cardio is terrible. The only good thing he has about him is that he's got some power in his hands. I mean, that's about it. And Bevon's very chinny, especially his confidence is low. So, he's definitely got a puncher's chance, but I think that's all it is. I think Bevon is so much better than him in all the other aspects of the game, the wrestling, the clinch, the cardio. I think that Bevon, this is where he can finally, have that performance, kind of like a Sungwoo Choi versus Suman, like the kid's down in the dumps right now, but we'll get you the worst guy we have on the roster, a guy that just tested positive for all this shit, and I think Bevon should get the win here, 30-27. I mean, look, the kid definitely is chinny. I'm gonna tell you that right now. We've known this guy for a while. One of our friends told us they saw him get knocked out in amateurs. Knocked out cold. So he's been knocked out stiff before.
And he proceeded to show us that video too. This is a true story.
Didn't you say that somebody was talking about knockouts around him?
Oh my god! All right. Since I have to tell this story, so Bevon Lewis was at the gym and stuff, and at one of the fighter gyms, and in the locker room, basically what was going on was one of the guys in there was teammates with Brunson, and Brunson, I think, was coming off a knockout loss, and in front of it's Izzy, and I think he was about to fight maybe Elias or something like that. But anyways, in front of Bevon Lewis, who was coming off a devastating knockout loss, the guy's like, man, Derek Brunson can't afford to get knocked out again. And you just saw Bevon's face. Man, I shouldn't even be sharing this story, but for the fans, I love you guys, but yeah, man. So I'm just the reason I bring that up is because I question where his confidence is at, straight up, because the way he was performing against Uriah Hall just careless, but careless in a way of, so much confidence. Uriah Hall's a very devastating striker, a guy that knocked out Mousasi, knocked out Jocko, knocked out Bevon, knocked out all these guys. And, Bevon, he didn't have a care in the world out there. He thought he was invincible. And then once that knockout happened, completely different approach against Darren Stewart. And it wasn't a pretty sight. And that's, all respect to Darren Stewart. He's definitely been proving himself lately, and he's a guy that we got to keep our eye out for. I mean, he's been getting big wins here. He turned a corner.
He made Trebazian quit.
he turned a corner. But yeah, and as far as Dequan, like you said, the guy's takedown defense is very, very, very bad. Does hit kind of hard. Is a tall, big guy. Made it to the UFC. Got to give him props. And he's fucking paid his dues on that regional scene. That man grinded his fucking way, and by the skin of his teeth got to the UFC, man. And I respect his story. He made a promise to his late child that he was gonna make it to the UFC, and he kept that promise, man. So I respect that guy. But as far as this matchup is concerned, Bevon, if he looks anything like the Contender Series guy or the person that fought Hall prior to getting knocked stiff, he should win. But if we see the tentative guy we saw against Darren Stewart, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'm going to go with Bevon. I think he's a favorite here for a reason. But this much of a favorite, proceed with caution.
We got to take a look at Bevon's little bro.
Oh, yeah. Let's tell him about Levon Lewis, though.
Levon's
now, Levon, on the other hand, watch out for this kid. He is serious. But he's I think a bantamweight or a featherweight? But a bantamweight, right? Yeah. Levon Lewis. The little bro, he's the talent in the family, even though Bevon's already in the UFC and Bevon's very skilled. But yeah, look out for Levon Lewis. But look, I'm going to go with Bevon Lewis here to defeat Dequan Townsend. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Jamahal Hill, who's 6-0, and Darko, Lord of Darkness Stosic, is 13-3. Currently, they got Jamahal Hill -125, and the comeback on Darko Stosic is +105. Well, Shaq, Jamahal Hill does have a karate background, so he likes to move around a lot. Darko Stosic, not the fastest guy. You think Darko Stosic is going to tell him, come, in the middle of this fight?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite matchups on the card because Jamahal Hill's got a lot of hype. Beat Dequan Townsend on the local scene. I think he was 3-0 or maybe 4-0 at the time. Beat Dequan Townsend, then had the Contender Series fight, knocked Popic out in a great performance. So Jamahal Hill, only 6 fights, but the kid's got a lot of talent. Darko Stosic definitely has him an experience, a former heavyweight. His last fight was a little weird because, he won that first round against Kennedy, who was 6'5", 80-something inch reach, and he did a good job using some hard inside low kicks. And it's just clear that Darko's on a different, he's fought a higher level competition considerably. I mean, even though Devin Clark has had his embarrassing moments, the skill, the wrestling level. I mean, Darko he slammed Devin Clark. He took down Kennedy multiple times. So, even though he's off 2 losses, I don't want to. I see some little improvement. I mean, one could say he won 2 rounds against Kennedy. I mean, he did a good job landing those inside low kicks. It's just a couple of them landed on the cup, and he lost 2 points. But it's unfortunate. But Darko, he's looking to address some holes in his game. I mean, our word on the street is he packed up from Serbia and went to Colorado. He's with Elevation Fight Team now. He's with the, Gaethje, Dober, and Blaydes and all those guys. He's trying to work on his cardio. He needs to up his volume up. But he's a power fighter, man. Everything this guy does is with vicious power. And Jamahal Hill's he got dropped by Dequan Townsend in that fight. And he just really hasn't fought the competition to really necessarily see, but from a betting perspective, he opened -175. Now he's -125. So that means everyone's on for the most part, everyone's on Darko Stosic, and that means that's more in Jamahal Hill's favor. If everyone's counting him out, I think that he can come in here and get a win. He's definitely has the higher ceiling in my opinion. It's just that Darko Stosic, I don't know if the views of him should necessarily be down right now. I feel like he kind of won 2 rounds of the Kennedy fight. It was just some low blows, and he's got a similar look here, southpaw, but this guy's a lot shorter. I think it's a tough fight for Jamahal. I wouldn't be shocked if this was a gritty, grimy fight all the way to the end. I'll take Jamahal by split decision. I think it'll be a tough fight, but I wouldn't be shocked if Darko looked the best he had. Just because the fact that a guy like him went to Colorado, it kind of makes me feel like he might be taking the. I mean, he's lost 2 in a row. I'm sure he don't want to lose three. He's also fighting another. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's desperate, man. I think he needs a win. So I wouldn't be shocked if he won this, but I'll take Jamahal Hill by split decision. I think it's gonna be a tough, gritty fight, man.
Look, as far as Darko Stosic is concerned, it's like what Conor McGregor would say. I see stiffness. you know,
Yeah, he's a musclehead.
I just really think that the athletic tools that Jamahal Hill brings to the table are going to be too much here. Obviously, the experience you mentioned counts for a lot in Darko Stosic's favor. He's seen a higher level, more pro fights, this and that, but the ceiling is so much higher for a guy like Jamahal Hill. In my opinion, at least, I could be totally wrong. Much taller guy, has the reach advantage here, and just the output is it's night and day, man. You know, Darko Stosic will do nothing for 2 minutes, and then he'll swing big bombs at you that are frankly kind of slow. And an athlete like Jamahal Hill, I think he's gonna be ducking and dodging, man. And I think he's gonna make him. I think he's gonna make him miss. I think he's gonna make him pay. And if all he's got to look out for is an inside leg kick and a couple overhands, I think he's in good shape here, man. This kid's been striking his whole life. And he's got to be making improvements every single fight because he's so young in his career. So while I respect the fact that Stosic addressed some issues, trying to address that cardio by training in elevation, I mean, how much can he really change his style at 28 years old? Like, I get that he can make some improvements, and maybe he comes out here and gives this kid a vet lesson, but I'm going to go with my gut on this one and take Jamahal Hill here. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Hannah Cifers, who's 10-3, and Angela Hill, who's 10-7. Currently, they got Angela Hill minus 185, and Hannah Cifers is plus 160. Well, the question I got to know is, do you trust Angela Hill at chalk against the hometown Hannah Cifers here?
Hill's from North Carolina too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Well, she's a fake North Carolina. she lives in California.
Oh, yeah, she lives in Cali, but she's from North Carolina.
You know, my girl Hannah Cifers never left where she came from.
Yeah, you know she's. I mean, look, it's a good fight. Hannah Cifers is on a 2-fight win streak. Angela Hill had a good fight with Yan Zhaonan, a good 3-round fight. Yan Zhaonan, edged it out the last 2 rounds, but then she bounced back with the win against Cerezo. That was a good performance. Got the cut stoppage. I mean, look, she stayed really disciplined in that fight. I'm not gonna say that she, made some great improvements or anything, but look, I feel like if she's fighting, top 15 girls, not named Randa Marcos or, Courtney Casey, all those girls that she lost to are ranked. Yan Zhaonan is gonna be ranked here soon. Who else did she lose to? Jessica Andrade, Nina Androv. I feel like she just fought the top competition. But if she's going to take this step down, I feel like now we got Cifers on. Cifers, look, Cifers is a tough chick. She's 5'1", but the reason why I'm a little hesitant on Cifers here, I see she's a popular dog, is because we just saw Angela Hill go up against another 5'1" girl her last fight, and we saw that the knees were a big factor. Now, Cifers does have some better, side-to-side movement with her head, but Cifers kind of in her Jody fight, well, I don't know, she was kind of coming up short a little bit on her punches. The Polyana Viana fight, look, Polyana Viana's, she's nice and all, but she's nowhere near the level of Angela Hill, and that's saying a lot. Like, Polyana Viana is a complete joke. And I think Hannah Cifers has a good story behind her. Everyone loves that, she's quiet and, that she's a very soft-spoken, and she does have some knockouts on her record, but I think I feel like she's rightfully the underdog. I feel like Hills, even with all the losses, is way more proven in the UFC. I mean, even though she lost to Courtney Casey, it was a good fight, as where, all the Hannah Cifers is beating is, 2 girls that probably won't be in the UFC in a few months. So I'm going to go with Angela Hill. I think she's more technical. I think that Cifers is going to struggle with the range. Even though Hill's only 5'3", her body's just built a lot longer, and she uses range and feints. And I think that she's a lot more experienced than Hannah. I feel like Hannah could possibly, pull off the upset. I mean, she's getting better. She's young. She's a farmer. You know how I feel about farmers, man. Farmers are they're strong. They're strong people, and they're usually good fighters. So Hannah's got some power, but I think Hill's gonna be too technical and just be too savvy. And just not put on a vet lesson, but just slightly win the rounds. Just I'll take Angela Hill.
I understand why Hill's the favorite, and I understand everyone's points, but sometimes Hill just doesn't fight to her potential, and there's a reason that she's a 500 fighter, basically. She actually has a losing record in the UFC, but a 500 fighter almost overall. And with Hannah Cifers, I gotta say she's impressed me, man. Just in the sense that she was kind of a sacrificial lamb to Macy Barber, who really embarrassed herself last weekend, by the way. And I don't know if you saw her dad's post. For everyone that did, y'all know what I'm talking about. But man, Hannah Cifers bounced back, 2 wins in a row, and now she's got the quote unquote step up against Angela Hill. Look, I just don't trust someone like Angela Hill at chalk. I respect her skills. I got to give her credit. She actually almost choked out my girl Yan Zona with a triangle choke. So hey, much respect. These fights often tend to be close. This is in Hannah Cifers' hometown. Crowd's going to be behind her, and Hannah Cifers is known for going out there, and actually she's knocked girls out in her regional fights. Even back in the NFC, she fought over here on our regional scene and actually beat someone that I don't like, so I got to give her respect for that.
She was knocking girls out in the NFC?
Yeah, so I got respect for my girl Hannah Cifers. I'm going to pick her here to win a split decision, maybe a controversial one. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Jordan Espinosa, who's 14-6, and Alex Perez is 22-5. Currently, they got Alex Perez minus 265, and Jordan Espinosa is plus 225. Well, Shaq, a lot of respect coming Alex Perez's way, and for good reason. The kid's a bully out there, tap guys out, but he's going up against the very fast and explosive Jordan Espinosa. Who you got?
Yeah, this is a good fight. Perez, like you said, is a bully. He just moves forward. He shells up. One of the best parts of his game is how well he cuts off the cage, man. The guy cuts off the cage very well, and Espinosa runs around the cage very well. So I'm very excited for this matchup. Perez is a big favorite, and he's both of these guys been fighting a long time. Espinosa got finished in the first round his last fight, so there's could possibly be some recency bias in there a little bit. But look, Espinosa, man, he's got a lot of potential. He's been fighting 10 years. He's very fast, one of the faster flyweights that you're going to see. And his performance against Eric Shelton, I thought it was a very underrated performance because I felt like he actually did keep up his movement throughout the 3 rounds. He actually didn't look the best he ever had, in my opinion. The Contender Series performance, one of them was a quick first-round finish, but the other one against the Hawaiian, he kind of got into some bad left hook exchanges, or he'd anytime they would get in close, he'd kind of fight with his hands down and get caught with punches. But hey, man, he's got a good chin. He eats the shots for the most part, and I think he's got a better chin than Perez. It's just that I feel like Perez is probably better than him in the little details, especially in close range. But Perez is gonna have to be careful, man, because Jordan's a little hard to track on the outside. The kid's movement when he is on point, and if he can put things together, man, I mean, he might come out here and knock Alex Perez out. We've seen Alex Perez wobbled against Shorty Torres. We saw him wobbled against Benavidez. So there is a chance Espinosa could clip him with something. It's just that Espinosa at times looks really good, but then at times he kind of does some spazzy stuff, kind of like some like Devin Clark stuff, and a little bit like he'll, back away with his eyes closed, or he'll shoot a bad shot, and like we saw against Matt Shell, shoot an unnecessary single after you just clipped him with the right hand, and then get set up into a triangle. So I think that Perez is, even though Espinosa is a state champion wrestler, I kind of think Perez is still the better wrestler. California Perez actually, if I'm not mistaken, the high school team that Cormier coaches, I think Perez is like the rival, is like the coach for their rival. So Perez is he's Carla Esparza's wrestling coach. I feel like he's got better wrestling technique. 100%. It's just a matter of him getting caught, not getting caught, and he's been wobbled in 2 fights. So I think that Jordan Espinosa is definitely the rightful underdog. I don't know about this wide. I'd probably say about like plus 150, plus 160. I'm going to still pick Perez by decision, but I think it's going to be a good fight. I wouldn't be shocked if Espinosa caught him with something flash style and caught him, but I think that Perez cuts off the cage really well, and that, as long as he picks his shots, I feel like anytime they get in close distance, he should capitalize. I mean, the kid's a bully. He hits really hard. I mean, that Shorty Torres, the power that he displayed in that. And Shorty Torres, although didn't have the best UFC run, man, Shorty Torres at that point had never lost a fight in his life.
Torres was so hyped up to a point.
Like, he had never lost. And even when he got cut, he went out there to brave and beat a Russian, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like Perez is... I mean, he's solid, man. The Benavidez was... I mean, he just shouldn't have been a favorite in that spot. Benavidez was... Everyone wrote him off because he lost to Sergio. I mean, he was coming off a big layoff, I guess, but Perez just wasn't ready for that level yet. Benavidez finished Formiga twice, so I'm going to pick Perez, but I got a lot of respect for Espinosa.
Yeah, man, this is a hell of a fight. Two guys that came off Contender Series, and they actually had similar results. So both guys had very impressive finishes on Contender Series. Obviously, Perez got a Anaconda choke, Jordan Espinosa with the Darce choke, and man, both guys very slick. And then Jordan Espinosa, they actually didn't sign him that first night. They made him come back, goes out there 3-round war, and knocks out Riley Dutra with a beautiful check hook. And man, just the speed that this guy's operating with. I've often compared him to kind of like a flyweight Yoel Romero in a sense. Yoel Romero doesn't always get every takedown he shoots for, and either does this guy, but man, the explosiveness and the speed, he can knock you out at any point, and I really do feel, I agree with you, if he ever, truly puts it together, the kid could make a run. It's just about not having those little mental lapses, Don't shoot unnecessary takedowns because a guy like Alex Perez can capitalize. And the way he snatched up that Anaconda on Contender Series, that was nasty, and it was so fast. It was there was no way out. Kind of like Nate Landwehr's walkout song, you know what I'm saying? No easy way out. You get caught in that thing and it's over with. So Jordan Espinosa has got to be careful about taking unnecessary shots. However, I do feel like if he's able to keep this fight standing, stuff the takedowns of Perez, who is a good wrestler in his own right, not just a submission artist. And, sometimes Jordan Espinosa fights with his hands down because he relies on his speed and his movement, his athleticism. Avoid the big bombs of Alex Perez. I do think he's live for the upset here. And when you look at a line like plus 225 on a kid who I think he's got a lot of potential, maybe he's a live underdog here. Look, I'm not going to be surprised if Alex Perez cuts off that cage and bullies him and wins another fight. He has been winning most of his fights, but I think Jordan Espinosa might be getting a little disrespected here, and there might be a little bit of value on him. So I'm going to take him to win this fight via decision. Co-main event in the evening in the welterweight division. We got Rafael Dos Anjos. He's 29-12. And Michael Chiesa is 15-4. Currently, they got Rafael Dos Anjos minus 260, and the comeback on Michael Chiesa is plus 220. Well, Shaq, if you told me this matchup was going to happen a couple years ago, I'd say RDA would mop the floor with him. But, since that point, both guys have been putting in work still. And Michael Chiesa looks to be a new man at 170. Is that enough to go out there and defeat a former champion and a black belt on the caliber of Rafael Dos Anjos?
It's a great matchup. Dos Anjos has been, like I said earlier, been fighting murderers row. I mean, cream of the crop wrestlers. Khabib, Usman, Covington, Leon. I mean, guys that get a lot of takedowns in their fights. And now he's fighting another one, Kevin Lee. And now he's fighting a guy known for his grappling as well, Chiesa. A little bit of a funkier style. Not the traditional, college wrestler style like the other ones. But Chiesa's been looking good, man. Maybe once I do see that. I think he's gonna have success in this weight class. This is a big step up. I thought he maybe could have used one more fight in between before we get to our RDA, but RDA is on the tail end of his career. It's just that, now he's what, minus 270, 60, 260. I mean, look, if he took a shot on Chiesa, he has been dominant at 170, right? Diego Sanchez, I know RDA would run through him in the, easily as well, but Carlos Condit, at least, a lot of people didn't think he was going to win that fight, and he went out there and dominated Carlos Condit easily. Maybe his confidence is through the roof. Obviously, RDA is the better fighter. He's got way better stand-up. Are you convinced Chiesa's calves can take one of those kicks?
Or his body?
or his body? I mean, RDA's got more power. It's just that RDA's on the tail end of his career, and you know, he's lost what of his like what three of his last four. But I still think 100% he's the better fighter here, better boxing, better kicks, better jiu-jitsu. I mean, you saw what he did to Kevin Lee, who, put Michael Chiesa to sleep. I mean, look, he went to bed. And me and you both know that. So I think that as long as RDA doesn't get held against the fence, I wish this was a 5-round fight, because then I would for sure know RDA would win. But to sit here and say that Chiesa doesn't have the grappling skill to do it, I mean, he did submit Dariush. I mean, he has had his moments. He knocked out Vic, beat Ronaldo. I mean, the kid's had his moments, man. He's pulled off...
submitted Jim Miller.
He submitted Jim Miller. I mean, he's had his moments in there. So I wouldn't be shocked if he did it, just because where RDA's at in his career. I know he's always coming to fight, but sometimes this is where the wheels fall off, man. He's had a great run, former champ. Chiesa's been looking good, but I still think he'll pull out the win. But I actually think Chiesa might give some people a little sweat. I think Chiesa might pin him up against that fence a little bit early. He's got a long body. He's a little grimy, man. Maybe he's the most confident he's ever been. He's had his moments, man. I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll take RDA by decision. I think that Chiesa will come out strong early, but eventually, if RDA can create space like he has, even against Usman and Covington and all those guys, that his body kicks and his calf kicks will probably get to Chiesa.
Man, this is an interesting fight, because obviously the best version of RDA, I think he runs through the best version of Chiesa. But the thing is, you know how many times RDA's been taken down in his last 4 fights? 28 times, and I'm not exaggerating. This guy's been taken down 28 times his last 4 fights. Now, granted, these were all college wrestlers he went up against, and Chiesa is not a college wrestler, but Chiesa is a long body mountain man, just grimy workman, just one of these guys. I don't know what it is, but he's very deceptive with his ground and pound and with his squeeze. I mean, to tap out a guy like Beneil Dariush the way he did, and that's a guy who's better than him everywhere too. So it's like one of those things where when you count this guy out, he often tends to surprise you, and this could be a great time to catch a guy like RDA, but I just can't ignore the difference in skill set here. Size could be a big factor here if Chiesa wins this fight, but ultimately I will go with RDA to finish Chiesa in knockout or submission. Main event in the evening in the heavyweight division. We got Curtis Razor Blaydes, he's 12-2, and Junior Dos Santos is 21-6. Currently, they got Curtis Blaydes minus 250, and the comeback on Junior Cigano is plus 210. Well, Shaq, I mean, striker versus grappler at the purest here, man. I mean, we know Curtis Blaydes wants to take him down, ground and pound him, knock him out with vicious elbows, and we know Junior Dos Santos wants to time an uppercut, an overhand behind the ear, put him down. Who you got in the main event here in Raleigh, North Carolina?
It's a great fight. Like you said, Curtis is gonna, he's gonna be looking to level change, keep it simple with the boxing, keep the exchanges down to a minimum, and do the Kane game plan and stay on this guy and wait till he gasses out and starts giving up the takedowns a lot easier. So, but the thing with Curtis is, it doesn't seem like his striking is really developing that much, but it really doesn't need to, because his grappling is just that strong. So it's like, let's just get this to the mat and let's grind these guys out. Junior Dos Santos, I don't think he's completely done. I just think that we know what we're getting here is a guy that's going to feint. He's going to look to throw that big overhand, the uppercut, and I just feel like as long as Curtis doesn't get knocked out, he's going to win this fight. He's been wobbled several times. I mean, Mark Hunt almost knocked him out. Overeem caught him with a knee, but he was able to get the takedowns there. He has Francis Ngannou, finished him twice. So I mean, he's definitely. I mean, it's heavyweight. There's definitely that chance. But Junior Dos Santos is one of these guys where I feel like now after that Francis Ngannou KO, I mean, he had a solid run, but I feel like this is a prime spot for Curtis to get a solid name on his resume and prove that he's the best heavyweight that's not named Francis or Stipe. Curtis Blaydes' grappling is just that dominant. I don't want to compare him to Khabib, but I think that when he gets a hold of these guys, do you ever see them get back up? I mean, the round's over when he
And
gets
if
on
they
top.
do, it's a mat return.
It's like, bro, he's so strong. Yeah, he can do the mat return all night long. And JDS we know what happened when he fought Kane, but obviously he's got that puncher's chance. But that's all I think it is. I think that as long as Curtis Blaydes does not get caught with an uppercut or a shot behind the ear, I think he's going to win a decision here or get a late TKO stoppage. So I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes by third round TKO, ground and pound. And, I think, I wonder who will fight then, because he can't fight Francis again.
Maybe DC or Stipe. DC ain't taking that
DC
fight.
ain't fighting Curtis.
Not because he can't beat him, just because just because he'd be like, who?
Who the fuck is Curtis?
Who? Nah, but look, as far as his matchup is concerned, I think Shaq broke it down pretty fairly and accurately, man. I mean, you don't expect Junior Cigano to go out here shooting for takedowns, right? So Junior's got to time that.
Remember when Junior tried to kick with Overeem?
Man, oh my God, that was a stunt and a half. But one thing I want to say is that back in Junior's prime, back when he was the man, when he was on that streak, like I mentioned, that UFC debut against Fabricio Werdum, all the way to that first title defense against Mir. In between then, he had a fight against Shane Carwin, who, man, that guy was serious at the time. That guy would touch people, they'd go down. Also, a former D2 wrestler. And you remember when Brock was like,
D2 national champ.
He's a D2 wrestler. I'm a D1 wrestler. But there was this one moment where Shane Carwin took him down, and the way he popped back up and the way he stuffed against Kane in the second fight for the first round. The guy has had some great takedown defense moments, but as he's been worn down with all these fucking wars, and it's like he likes to compete, but he doesn't have that same hunger he once had. He's not willing to go through life and death anymore. If he gets into that bad spot, let's just take home our 6-figure paycheck and move on to the next one. And I respect that. He's at that point in his career where he's allowed to. I mean, you're allowed to do that at any point, but I'm saying he's at that point where it's not like dishonorable, in my opinion, or anything like that. Like, dude, you are a former heavyweight champ. You've done everything there is to do in the sport. Go ahead and cash out. And with Curtis, look, this is your chance to come out here and get your first win over a former UFC champion. And I think he's going to do it, man. Just don't go down and you win this fight, and most likely via ground and pound TKO. So I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes here. Now, Shaq, before we answer these fan questions, just got to let them know to go to bestfightpicks.com and use that promo code 2020 to save 20% off our bets. This weekend, it's going down, UFC Raleigh, North Carolina. Go to bestfightpicks.com and hit us up today. Well, Shaq, let's answer these fan questions, man, because my boy Jimmy the Drunk says, just curious, does there happen to be any fighters from the UFC Raleigh card that have abnormally large body parts? I know what you're trying to say here, man. Montel Jackson has bigger hands than Francis Ngannou. Yeah, this has been established, my man. Clint Griffin wants to know, where does Barber rank on all-time stunt pulled?
Well, she legitimately tore her ACL, so, I mean.
So that wasn't a stunt in your ass? Because we've seen fighters go out there and win with injuries before. When GSP pulled his groin against Thiago Alves, he still dominated him.
I mean, why are we comparing her to GSP?
I'm just saying, fighters have won with injuries before.
GSP. Where does it rank stunt level? I mean, top 20.
Voice of reality, and my bad, Clint. Yeah, it's definitely the stunt of the year so far because there's been one card. But on the flip side, upset of the year for Roxanne, definitely. My boy Voice of Reality says, see the talk about Conor fighting Gaethje next. Why don't they want to give him a winnable fight before the Khabib rematch loss? Let's see if that fight gets booked first. You know what I mean? And
what was the question?
He says, why don't they want to give him a winnable fight before Khabib rematch loss if he's fighting Gaethje next?
Because, I mean, Dana wants his pockets to be fatter, man. That's why.
Is he fighting Gaethje next, firstly?
I mean, I know Kavanaugh wants that, but it's probably not going to happen. I know that Dana said he's flying Gaethje out to meet with him in the next couple of weeks. So I think that Conor is probably going to try to get this. I mean, look, that that Khabib payday is ridiculous. They're both gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, Dana wants that. I'm sure everyone when they show them the numbers of it, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I want that one.
The numbers are quite attractive for the Khabib rematch. Jack Scott said, "Where the fuck is the 246 recap?" I appreciate you, brother. We're gonna start pumping those out soon. We got some other things that we're prioritizing with, so we can give you more recaps and more content. So I appreciate you, bro. Noblar says, Bellator 238. What funky submission will Curtis Millender pull from his BJJ arsenal on his Bellator debut?
I heard Curtis has been doing jiu-jitsu tournaments. I heard he's been getting tapped out of there. Just kidding. Hey, but at least he's making improvements. He's probably gonna knock this guy out. I mean, what I think it's Moses Moreta, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Curtis, I'm glad to see him back in Bellator where he actually started at. Good thing he's not fighting Elizu or Bilal Muhammad anymore. I mean, imagine if he would have stayed in the UFC, he would have got tapped out again. You know that, right?
I do know that. So, I'm going to say a flying go-go plata, my man. Stuart Tuckwell says, have you guys ever had any fighters messaging you pissed because they have found out you guys have picked against them? Nah, man. I mean, I think that the fighters understand that this is entertainment and we're out here having fun and that we respect them all. We know that all whoop our ass and, this is just fun for the fans, you know what I'm saying? We genuinely respect any person that gets that cage locked behind them, win or lose. So, yeah, no, I think the fighters that know me know how much respect I truly have for them. So, haven't had any problems yet. My boy Cap Kobe wants to know, after seeing the Irishman do what he did to you, did what he did, do you still want to see a rematch with Khabib? Personally, I don't. Keep up the great show. You guys are pros. Thank you, bro. What do you think, Shaq? You want to see that rematch?
Not now. Like, honestly, I mean, if I like the Gaethje fight. I like a lot of things. The Diaz
Masvidal.
trilogy, Masvidal. I mean, I like a lot of things. I don't think it has to be done right now, but yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd like the Gaethje fight. Let's see if Gaethje really is this is a big step up in competition from. I mean, if that fight were to go down, it'd be a big step up from Vic and Edson and Cowboy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you saw what McGregor did to him. So I'm interested. McGregor looked good, man. I'm interested to see him with these guys like T. Ferg and Gaethje and Dustin rematch and things like that. So I want to see that fight if it was up to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, the build-up, there's no doubt about it, would be incredible for Khabib and Conor. It's going to be just pure entertainment. So, but yeah, there's other matches. The Masvidal one is a lot of fun, even though Masvidal shouldn't have worn that robe at the fights.
You blew it, kid.
I was like, what?
What are you doing?
What are you doing, bro? But yeah. So, do I think the fight ends differently? I'd still pick. I would pick Khabib to win this time. So We'll see how this thing plays out. My boy GMO says, "Is it just me or does Bellator have the best main card of the weekend?" I think it's just you, brother. Cause let me pull up that main card real quick. You're telling me a fight card with Ava Knight versus Emily Geddes on the main card, 1-0 versus 3-3 is better than the UFC card, brother? I love you though, man. Thank you for giving us that question. But nah, man, I gotta go with the UFC card this weekend. I mean, I'll watch both on two different screens, but looking more forward to the UFC one. Garrett Irwin wants to know, now that Yoel versus Israel is official, do you think fighters should get a title shot coming off a loss? I mean, it just depends on the circumstance. This is nothing new. It's not like this is the first time that's happened. It just depends on certain things. Like, for example, Israel Adesanya said he doesn't feel like his legacy is going to be complete unless he beats a guy like Yoel Romero. So why would you deny him that opportunity? I understand that Paulo Costa deserves the next shot, but Paulo Costa is coming off, a torn bicep or some shit like that? Like, he's got an injury to deal with. So in the meantime, let Israel stay active and let him fight Yoel.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. It's for the numbers, man. The other contenders just don't have the name value yet to be in that pay-per-view spot with a guy like Israel Adesanya. Who's he gonna fight? Cannonier? A rematch with with Rob Whitaker. We already know how that's gonna go. So I feel like Yoel had a great fight with Paulo Costa. Some people even thought that he won that fight, even though I don't know how. But some people thought he won. We know Yoel's gonna bring it no matter what. And like you said, it's a good name to have on your resume. Kind of similar to what Henry's trying to do with Jose Aldo. I mean, look, Corey Sandhagen and Peter Yan, they don't have that name yet, and Aljamain and all those guys. So in the meantime, while you guys figure out, you three or you two, figure out who's gonna emerge amongst you guys, I'll fight the legend who's a proven seller like Jose or who were we just talking about again?
Israel and
And yeah, or Yoel, and we'll go that route. But Israel just needs a fight, man. He's looking for a knock.
You can't fault him. Yoel's a tough-ass fight, man.
Yoel ain't easy.
No, I don't see too many guys calling that guy out. Matthew Drucker says, when does Half the Battle come out? I'm dying. I appreciate you, brother. It's coming out soon. Thank you so much. Ian Dawson says, when are you boys coming to Australia to attend a showdown here? Tax-deductible trip. Man, I'd love to come down to Australia. I'd have to be heavily medicated for that 22-hour flight. But, man, firstly, shout out to everyone in Australia for what y'all are going through right now. I don't know what I could do to help that situation, but if there's anything, feel free to message me. But, yeah, I feel for the people, the animals, and everything going down there. So we definitely got you guys in our hearts, and also just the fighting spirit of the Aussies. And the Kiwis, too.
I mean, the Aussies are emerging, man.
Travis says, quick picks versus Borix versus Caldwell.
Man, that's a good fight. I mean, I'm going to say Borix third round flying knee.
Man, it's an interesting one. At first, I thought Caldwell should be favored, but then it's like, this is actually a 5-round fight, so that leaves more opportunities for Borix to land that flying knee or even catch the guy in a guillotine. He's been dove in head first many times, and now one thing about this fight is Caldwell's finally not going to be the bigger guy. So, interesting fight. Because we've also seen Borix get wrestled for large amounts of periods of times, but then he's come back with that flying knee. So, I don't know. Let's see if he gets another flying knee. It's going to be interesting. MMA Brain says, how many times does a healthy Macy Barber beat Roxy if they fought 10 times? What do you think, Shaq?
I don't know. That's a tough question. They won't never fight 10 times, though, so it's like, you shouldn't even, they're only going to fight once.
I don't know. I'm not going to disrespect Roxanne, man. Props to her on having such a great performance. Rampage said, do you see Mads Burnell coming back to the UFC? And if so,
I just talked about that, actually. Wow.
And if so, what's his upside? He was taking it to Arnold before the finish. What do you think, Shaq?
After watching that fight, I mean, I think he could be in there. It's just that he's not really much of a striker. He's kind of more of a pure grappler. So, I mean, I feel like, he can come back and put him on a Euro card against somebody, but he's not ever going to touch the rankings. But I do think he could win a fight in the UFC, of course. I think there's a few guys he could beat. Yeah, I mean, with some of the shit we got in there. I mean, they had Humberto Bandenay and Austin Arnett in the UFC not too long ago.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things where
it's just his style. He's a grappler.
In my opinion, people's outrage of him getting cut was a little exaggerated. I mean, if you put it into perspective, the guy went 1-2, and both fights he got finished in the third round. So it's just one of those things where, and then the one fight he won, and the one fight he won, he laid on the guy for 3 rounds. So it's just he's not the most exciting fighter. They'd rather have guys like Sodiq Yusuff and Arnold Allen. Well, even if people consider him a prospect, it don't matter. Like, if he loses, it's done. Whereas those guys lose. Hey, we like how you fight. That's why you won't get cut. All right, Oracle MMA says, is Curtis Blaydes going to split JDS head open like a watermelon or like a can of tomatoes? I'm thinking more like a can of tomatoes, personally. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that JDS is busted up, man. 100%. Curtis, you saw Abdurahimov's nose explode his last fight, so.
And what about Overeem?
And Overeem, I mean, those guys got fucked up.
Look, this guy's got vicious ground and pound.
If this guy gets on top of you, I don't know what to tell you.
Once JDS is a little tired from stuffing all those takedowns, he's on his back, I think there is a high chance for some devastating ground and pound. My boy Ilir wants to know, ATL training question, how much of Douglas' improvement Douglas's improvement do you think we are going to see in Diego, as well as uh, they both as they are both in the same training environment? Do we see the best Diego in his upcoming fight?
They actually got a good trend. They got Anthony Rocco Martin on the team now. Rocco Martin's in town.
Oh,
But
boy, I had to leave Florida. You know what I'm saying? So that's a different story for a different time.
He had to flee from Florida, but but yeah, man, Douglas is a legend down here, and Diego's on a 3-fight win streak. It's unfortunate. I heard he pulled out his fight with Morano, but
I mean, we'll talk to them on Saturday at the NFC fight and see
Yeah.
exactly what happened. But I'm sure Diego.
yeah, I'm sure he'll be back.
He'll,
soon.
he'll be back soon.
And his confidence is doing really well now. Now that he, I feel like now that he had time to relax and not always have to live up to Douglas. And Douglas, I mean, that guy is a legend, man.
Douglas is amazing. Douglas is one of the best welterweights in the world. But yeah, for sure, he's been taking influence from his brother's style. You've been seeing the leg kick. You've been seeing the leg kicks more. You've been seeing that left hook. So absolutely. Zach says, who is a current non-UFC fighter that you see having success in the UFC this year? So there's a couple guys. I like that kid Tofik that's over in Ryzen. He beat Patricky Pitbull. And then obviously the guys that I represent, Jared Nitrain Gooden, Robert Hale, Nathan Williams, and you got to look out for my amateur prospect, Jamar the Rockstar Whitehead. I'm letting you guys know. I've had him on the show back when he was like 16. Now he's almost 21. The kid is a total phenom, and he's gonna be a star.
What about that guy that just knocked out CB Dalloway? I think his name's like Jerry.
He just got signed to the UFC.
Yeah, he got signed to the UFC. So that guy, there's this kid in LFA. His name's Brandon Royval. He's like a flyweight. He's got some losses, but I think he should be in the UFC coming up here soon. He's the LFA champ. He was actually supposed to fight Scoggins' little bro, but Scoggins' little bro pulled out. But that kid's super exciting. He fought Casey Kinney, fought a bunch of UFC guys, but he's just super exciting. He'll be a fan favorite in the UFC. Yeah, that's about it.
And there's this kid, you said this year. Okay, so not this year, but there's this kid, LaJuan Davis, who in a couple of years is going to be someone to look out for. So MMA Sander says, would you think there is value on JDS by KO, or is he a straight-up fade? And he says, also, I see Dos Anjos being better everywhere, so I don't get everyone saying Chiesa is a surefire bet. Underdog play of the card. So, yeah, I mean, Chiesa a surefire bet. You know, let's relax. You know, Dos Anjos is better everywhere, but you know, if you want to take maybe a 1-unit shot because you have a theory about certain things with his takedown defense, he was taken down 28 times his last 4 fights. But yeah, I mean, I do think RDA is better everywhere. Can't wait to see how that one plays out. As far as value on JDS by KO, look, it's his only path to victory. He ain't gonna come out here and submit Curtis Blaydes. He ain't gonna come out here and grind out Curtis Blaydes. So yeah, he's got to win by KO. So, but yeah, if you wanna, it could be a situation where you throw away a unit doing that, or you look fucking smart. So, see, it's up to you, brother. Ali J wants to know, how many pounds does Chiesa cut to make the 170 limit? And how many more pounds advantage would he have over RDA?
Let me guess.
I heard he cuts like from 190 or 200, so you know what I'm saying, 20, 30 pounds. And who will be more successful in the clinch? That's a great question. RDA does have some nice knees in that clinch, but Chiesa is such a longer man. So I feel like if Chiesa takes his back, it's going to be super interesting. But while they're standing against the fence, in the early going, it's going to be back and forth. It's just about who gets worn down as the fight progresses.
Yeah, Chiesa can be grimy in that clinch at times. I mean, he's had good moments. Dariush in that clinch. He kind of bullied Dariush in that clinch a little bit. And Dos Anjos kind of, at times, can have bad positioning in the clinch. I mean, all those dudes pushed him against the fence. Covington, Usman. But those guys are college wrestlers, good grapplers. So is Chiesa, man. It's really a matter of, is RDA truly on the... Can he still win a couple... Is he a surefire top 10 guy, top 6, 7, 8 guy, or is he really trending down towards, out of the rankings? I mean, sometimes look at Anthony Pettis, man. The guy's out here, getting, I mean, I got a lot of respect for Anthony, but, sometimes, man, these kids just have caught up to you, and Chiesa might be feeling the best he ever has, so we'll see.
So, time for our YouTube questions. Big Chief 24, which top prospects do you see making to the UFC in 2020? Kind of answered it, but again, Robert Hale, Jared Gooden, that kid Tofik in Ryzen.
Man, you know another guy I want them to sign, but I'm not sure if they will, is that Manel Cape guy.
Oh, Manel Cape. Oh, I fucking love that kid. Manel
Man,
Cape.
if
That
they
would be
signed him.
sick. Yeah, I like that kid Patrick Mix too. He's exciting. I heard they passed on him, because I don't know why, but the kid's exciting. I like him too. Rexley, any thoughts on the Bellator card? Borgs versus Caldwell, Corrales for Archuleta. Not really, man. I mean, Corrales and Archuleta. I think Archuleta had kind of an almost embarrassing performance against Pitbull, but that is Pitbull. Here with Corrales, it's a more winnable fight if he can mix in his takedowns. Corrales is always a tough out, though. You can't count that guy out, so it's going to be a hell of a fight. Rob Waddell, what lets Pettis down more, his defensive wrestling or his willingness to get pushed up against the fence?
Which one, Anthony or Sergio?
He's talking about Anthony. And also, it sounds like the hunger is kind of gone. Could a camp change do him any good? Actually, Rob, I'd love to answer this question first. I think you said it best. The hunger is kind of gone, and that to me, it's just all about the mindset here. I don't think a camp change would do him any good because that would be leaving the people that brought him up, and not only that, what else is there left for him to do, man? He's accomplished everything there is to do in this sport. He's doing it for the paycheck now, and just because he moves camps or whatever, that's not going to just change his mentality. He doesn't have that same dog he once had. And that's no disrespect. That's just facts. You guys know that fire left after the RDA fight, but the guy still makes a lot of money, and you got to respect him.
Yeah, it's just more so like, when you lose the belt in that fashion, and then you have those like demoralizing losses to Eddie, where he could have literally, if it was just a change in attitude, he probably could have won that fight. And then, you trickle that into Barboza. Okay, but then you bounce back, but then you have that botched weight cut at 145 against Holloway. You get finished there. And then you come back up to 55s, you get a win. But it's just the losses towards the end, on that last stretch of that run. The Poirier fight, I mean, there was a lot of blood that he lost in that fight. I mean, the cage was covered in blood. And then the Ferguson fight, I mean, Ferguson was on top of him, molly-whopping him. I mean, he dropped Ferguson, but Ferguson gets dropped every fight. And then the Diaz fight, similar thing. Diaz, I mean, he turned his back away. He's got a couple good wins here and there. He can get a flash KO, but yeah, the drive just isn't there anymore. He's made all the money in the world, and I just think it's kind of been beat out of him, honestly. I just think that these guys have taken literally chunks out of him, and he's just wounded warrior, man. I think that now at this stage in his career, what he need if he wants to keep fighting and make consistent money and make 2 checks, I feel like maybe now this is the time where he does the the Shogun. Like, you need to start fighting lesser competition. Let's start giving some of these young kids a chance, and where you got more experience, and maybe who you got between him and Alexander Hernandez. Who you got between him and Armand Saruki?
Saruki, are you kidding me?
They would wrestle him.
What about Pettis versus Nasrat?
Like he needs to go down to that stage, with the Jakars.
Could you imagine Pettis versus Dober?
Oh my God, Dober would right, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Great question, man. Warrior Like says, will John Jones get knocked the fuck out in 2020? I mean, dude, this is the great thing about this sport, is that these things happen when you least expect them, and this guy's been undefeated since he came into the UFC back in 2008, some shit like that, maybe 2007. So to see that here in 2020 or just any point, it's gonna be a historical moment when that guy finally loses, if he finally loses. You know what I mean? I remember, like I've told you guys many times on the show, I was in attendance when Chris Weidman knocked out Anderson Silva the first time, and it was a very shocking moment in our sports history, and that right there just let me know that no one's invincible. So yeah, it could happen, man. So, but you could also see him continue to dominate. So I just can't wait to see. But yeah, if it does happen, all I'm saying is I'm not gonna be like, so surprised. Like, this is the fight game. But if you fight long enough, this shit will happen.
Yeah, I won't be surprised at all. He's fighting an undefeated guy next. And sometimes people have to Sometimes it's time for the belts to change, man. I remember when DJ went down, everyone was like, "Oh my god," you know what I'm saying? You remember when he went down, or when the great Ronda Rousey went down?
Yeah.
When the great Conor McGregor went down.
Anderson Silva.
I mean, it happens to the best of them. It's only a matter of time. So, I mean, I remember when McGregor lost. I mean, at the time when he lost to Diaz, I mean, he was a fucking god at the time, and I mean, it was shocking. So. Anything can happen in this sport. Will he get knocked out in 2020? I can't wait till we're about to find out here very soon.
Very soon. Joshua Lowe says, "What's your thoughts on Conor versus Justin at 170?" So basically, kind of like most Conor fights, Conor could knock him the fuck out in the first round. But if this gets dragged into deep waters against a guy like Gaethje, I cannot wait to see what that would be like.
Yeah, I mean McGregor looked really good, but it was definitely the good tune-up fight to come back to. You know what Gaethje did to him. Now the thing with Gaethje is against McGregor, it's very easy to get sucked into his shit and get overconfident, and next thing you know, he's in your head a little bit. And Gaethje's never been on a stage like that. He's, I know he's one of the most exciting fighters in the game, but I think that his win streak, I think it's great. I mean, I think Gaethje's 100% top 5, could fight for the title, but also at the same time, he has been fighting lesser competition than, the Poiriers and the Eddie Alvarez's at the time of when they fought. So I think that Gaethje. Well, how would you set the line if they fought?
Let's see if there is a line. Firstly, they got a dead pick 'em.
So it's a pick 'em. Yeah, I mean, Gaethje's been looking good. He's got a lot of talent. How many knockouts?
A lot.
A bunch of knockouts. So I mean, but Conor. I think he said something. He told Justin, "Let's not forget the 2 guys that knocked you out. I schooled them both." So. He's got a point there, but Gaethje, man, you can never count that guy out. And Gaethje, man, if you get into a war with that guy, he might kill you.
Yeah, so deep waters, I favor Gaethje. Early, I favor Conor. 8-Ball Rocco says, "Do you feel like playing lines like minus 600 or like last week a minus 1200 is worthwhile? Are they too risky regardless? Hope you're well. Let's keep rolling." What do you think, Shaq?
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where, it could be. I mean, it just depends on the spot, man. You just have to do all your research. But I think, is Montel lined high enough or is it too low? That's a good question. I just think it depends on the spot. But for the most part, I'd say yeah.
Stilio Canto says, hypothetically speaking, what would your guys' record be in your own opinion if you fought every woman on the UFC roster? People think I'm crazy for thinking I would send Nunes or Cyborg into orbit. Firstly, I ain't fighting any girl, but Amanda Nunes would knock me into next week, man. She would knock me the fuck out. If we grappled on the mat, she would tap me out. She's a black belt. Yeah, I mean, dude, these chicks are serious, man, so, and it's just not a good look.
What about you versus Rocky Pennington?
It's just not a good look, like, to say, oh yeah, I'd beat a girl.
So
like,
you think you could beat Rocky Pennington in a fight?
I'll answer that off air, but I mean, look, I've grappled with Tisha Torres and Angela Hill before, so like, that'd be different than going with Nunes and Cyborg. Nunes and Cyborg would fuck me up for sure, but like the straw weights, it's like, again, training.
What about Felicia Spencer?
Listen, man. You're getting me into hot water, brother. So, but I appreciate the question and all the support as always, my guy. All right, well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So, what is the fight to watch for UFC Raleigh?
My fight to watch is gonna be Alex Perez versus Jordan Espinosa. The flyweights are some of the most, is arguably the most exciting weight class on the roster. We know the type of pace that you have to fight in that weight class. And look, the winner of this fight is going to be in prime position to get a big fight up here. I think it's number 10 versus number 11. The winner of this fight should get a very good fight. And both these guys are super exciting, man. Espinosa's got the speed, but Perez is, the big bully in there. And I'm excited to see the matchup. And I think there's a chance somebody gets finished.
Yeah, look, my fight to watch is Arnold Allen versus Nick Lentz. I've been very high on Arnold Allen for the longest time. Nick Lentz is a very well-respected veteran. This is that classic match where Arnold, are you ready to break into upper echelon of the division? Nick Lentz is the perfect gatekeeper to find out. A very crafty veteran. This will be an exciting fight. Arnold Allen versus Nick Lentz is my fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC on ESPN Plus 24?
My fighter to watch is gonna be Montel Jackson. I know he's a big favorite this weekend, but I feel like depending on the type of performance he has against Colares, we'll get to see where he goes from there. Because if he kind of struggles with him, they'll probably keep him on the slow track. But if he comes out here and finishes a guy like Colares, who's a super tough guy, early on in the first round and dominates him like how he did Kelleher his last fight, don't be shocked if they say, Montel, maybe you are ready for the upper echelon at 135.
Montel Jackson, always a guy to watch. Always curious to see what he's going to do. He's got a very underrated opponent here that he's facing. But for me, my fighter to watch is Brett Johns. Look, this is a guy that's got his back up against the wall, all the pressure in the world, the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he has no easy fight here against a D1 wrestler and a very experienced guy in Tony Gravely. But Brett Johns is coming off wins over 2 top 5 opponents, and if he can come out here and get back on track against a guy like Tony Gravely, I think that people could start looking at him in, maybe a fringe top 15 guy like they once were. He used to be 15-0. He was a very high prospect. People had high hopes for him. He lost against very stiff competition. A win here puts him back in the good graces, and I'm very excited to see what he does. So for that reason, Brett Johns is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday at UFC Raleigh. They can get our bets at bestfightpicks.com. They can follow you on Twitter at MMAGenius05, on Instagram at ShaqBFP. They can follow me at BestFightPicks on Twitter. Our Instagram is BestFightPicksOfficial. Make sure you subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the places where we are available. We truly appreciate all our fans, all our supporters. Thank you guys so much. We love you. Cannot wait to show you guys what we've been working on. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.